Another video that I had up before that I got. Actually, I should just explain that. For those of you who watched my last video on the BookSense XT, I made a comment that it got deleted. This one, the video that I'm about to do, also got deleted. What happened was I accidentally checked the select all option for erasing my videos before YouTube did their redesign instead of the video that I wanted. Because when you use a magnifier, you sometimes miss some things. So I basically was checking the wrong box, and 100 of my videos went splat. There, now that that's out of the way. What if you don't have around $300 or $400 to spend, or you just want to take a look at leisure books or maybe reference materials? Well, the federal government has a solution for you. And this is it. This is the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped digital talking book player. Little background on this. The media it uses is very interesting. This is it. It's essentially a USB thumb drive that has been put into this little casing here. The casing itself is about the size of a cassette. On the front, you can see we have a USB port. And if I lift the player here, you can see there in the back, probably, I don't know, you might be able to see in the back, a USB port. On the side, you have another USB port behind this little flap. This USB port can take thumb drives. This is your headphone jack. And I'm just going to let the player tell you about itself as far as the controls are concerned. So let's start with the power switch.
Player on. Press any button to learn about its function.
So we'll start with the power switch.
Power. Battery charge remaining. 7 hours. Battery powered. Press this power button to turn the player off. Press the power button again to turn the player back on. If the player is running on battery and not playing a book, it will automatically turn off after 30 minutes to preserve battery power.
So let's go around the keypad here. So here are your standard playing controls.
Rewind. Press this rewind button once to move backward 5 seconds in the book. Press and hold this rewind button to move back further in the book. The longer you hold the button down, the more quickly you will move backward. The player will tell you how far the reading position has moved. If you hold down the rewind button for 10 seconds, you will back up 15 minutes in the book. If you hold down the rewind button longer than 10 seconds, the reading position will continue moving, progressively faster, back to the previous chapter, where it will then move from chapter to chapter. You will hear a beep at the start of each chapter. If you hold down the rewind button long enough, you will reach the beginning of the book. When you release the rewind button after moving to a different chapter, the player will announce the name of that chapter and play from its beginning. If the player was stopped prior to pressing the rewind button, you will need to press the play button to hear the book. It is not necessary to rewind the book before returning it to the library.
Returning it to the library. This player is not my personal property. See here you have Library of Congress, National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. And then you have your Library of Congress seal. This player is on loan to me from my state's local talking book library. You cannot get this player unless you are an eligible patron. In order to be eligible, you have to, through doctor's records, be deemed as having low vision, no vision, in other words, entirely blind. You need to, or for some other reason, be unable to effectively read a print book. holding it, for example. The USB port on the side, you could use it with thumb drives, but you could also plug in a remote unit. Let's go through let's continue our tour through the controls. You notice that the description is very thorough, and the reason is because there are two versions of this player, but we'll talk about that when we get to these controls up here at the top.
Fast forward. Press this fast forward button once to move forward 5 seconds in the book. Press and hold this fast forward button to move further forward in the book. The longer you hold the button down, the more quickly you will move forward. The player will tell you how far the reading position has moved. If you hold down the fast forward button for 10 seconds, you will advance 15 minutes in the book. If you hold down the fast forward button longer than 10 seconds, the reading position will continue moving, progressively faster, to the next chapter, where it will then move from chapter to chapter. You will hear a beep at the start of each chapter. If you hold down the fast forward button long enough, you will reach the end of the book. When you release the fast forward button after moving to a different chapter, the player will announce the name of that chapter and play from its beginning. If the player was stopped prior to pressing the fast forward button, you will need to press the play button to hear the book.
And then we have our volume controls. Pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just going to go ahead and let you listen to what it says.
Volume down. To decrease the volume by 1 step, press the volume down button. There are 15 volume steps. You cannot turn the volume off completely. Volume up. To increase the volume by 1 step, press the volume up button. There are 15 volume steps.
You notice that when I pushed volume up and down, it actually went ahead and performed that function. It got louder and softer. These are the only buttons aside from the power button that will actually perform their associated function if you do not have a book inserted. I'm going to leave these keys for the very end. So let's go to the sleep key next.
Sleep. Pressing the sleep button once will play 15 minutes of the book and then stop the machine. Pressing the sleep button twice will play the book for 30 minutes, 3 times for 45 minutes, and 4 times for 60 minutes before stopping playback.
And I believe if you press the sleep button, off the top of my head, I can't remember how many times. I think it may be either 5 or 10. Well, it's not 10 because I already tried it, but it might be 5. Then you can get system information. This player actually is a very, very stripped down Linux computer. And you can get software updates for it, although the software updates are few and far between. And usually, I get all my books online, but the library provides its own cartridges. This particular cartridge, where is it? There it is. This particular cartridge I bought from the American Printing House for the Blind. It's like $12, which includes a 2 gigabyte cartridge plus a cable to hook it up to your computer. But you can also call your local library and have them send you books on a cartridge. And they will have a braille label in this area here where my thumb is that will tell you about the book. And if there's a player update, then that player update will also be preloaded onto the book you've ordered. And the idea is that for somebody who doesn't have a computer, then this is how they would update their player. I want you to take note of something while I have the cartridge in my hand. Let me see if I can get this to focus. Yeah. Maybe I'm too close. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have to get close to see this, but if you can take a look at the small print down at the bottom, it says, further reproduction or distribution in other than a specialized format is prohibited. Why is that? Well, actually, I'll explain why, but I want you to take note of that. And we'll get back to that in a moment. But while I was holding the cartridge, I just thought I'd point that out to you. So I'm going to hit the tone buttons now.
Tone down. To lower the tone of the voice by one step, press the Tone Down button. There are 11 tone steps. The player will tell you when the voice tone is normal. Tone Up. To raise the tone of the voice by one step, press the Tone Up button. There are 11 tone steps. The player will tell you when the voice tone is normal.
So we got speed.
Speed Up. To increase the reading speed by one step, press the Speed Up button. There are 16 speed steps. The player will tell you when the reading speed is normal. Speed adjustment can only be performed with a book inserted in the player. The speed cannot be changed in button describer mode.
Which means that without the cartridge, we can't adjust the speed. Speed down does the same thing. These buttons here at the very top, above the moon, where my finger's running along, there are two versions of the player. The basic player and the advanced player. The advanced player is the only one with these buttons. So let's go through each one of them. Info.
Information. To hear the current reading position, battery status, and power source, press this information button. You may press the information button repeatedly to step through these items. You may also press and hold the information button to play the built-in user guide. Press and hold the information button again to close the user guide. Battery powered. Battery charge remaining 7 hours.
Previous.
Previous element. Each time you press this previous item button, you will move to the previous item at the navigation level you have chosen. For example, if you chose chapter from the navigation menu, then each time you press the previous item button, you will move to the beginning of the previous chapter. Similarly, if you chose section or bookmark, you will move backward to the previous section or bookmark. Regardless of your chosen navigation level, pressing the previous item button repeatedly will eventually bring you to the beginning of the book.
These elements are very useful for navigating like reference books, cookbooks. In fact, on this cartridge, I have a book by George Carlin, which is a bunch of essentially comedy skits that he's written. And what this allows me to do, what the navigation allows me to do, is to go back and forth between those various little jokes that he's done. So it's very handy.
Navigation menu. To choose from the types of navigation available in a book, such as by chapter, section, or bookmark, press this navigation menu button repeatedly. The menu may have different choices for each book. Use the previous item button to the left or the next item button to the right to move backward or forward at your chosen navigation level. For example, if you choose to navigate by chapter, then the previous item button will move backward a chapter at a time, and the next item button will move forward a chapter at a time. The first time you press the menu button, the player will announce, but will not change the current navigation level.
Next element does essentially the same thing as the previous element button. The final button here we have is Mark.
Bookmark. Press the Bookmark button to set a bookmark at the current reading position. To return to a bookmarked position, press the Menu button until you hear Bookmark Jump. Then use the previous and next buttons to move backwards or forwards to your bookmarked positions. When you reach the desired position, you can press play to continue reading or press bookmark again to delete that bookmark. There are automatic bookmarks for the beginning and end of the recording and for the current reading position. Bookmarks will be saved in the player memory after you remove the book or turn off the player. If you replay the book at a later date, the bookmarks will still be available. The player can store a very large number of bookmarks, so deleting them is optional.
Now, we've gone through the controls. The basic player does not have these extra controls here on the top above the sleep button because its primary intention is for people that just want to read novels straight through and may not have an interest in reference books or who just want a simpler player, period. Now, regarding this message, further reproduction or distribution in other than a specialized format is prohibited. Remember I told you, this player is not mine. This belongs to the local library and technically to the United States government. What this is the Library of Congress's National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. And that's essentially a book service for patrons who are eligible to receive them that allows you to get books in an accessible format if you cannot read them. Like I said, you can either get them on cartridges like this, or you can go ahead and download them from the web. And if anybody would like to see that, I can certainly show it to you. The nice thing about a blank cartridge like this is that you can have multiple books. The cartridges that come from the library are not readable, not even by your computer. They're only readable by the player. But a blank cartridge like this just functions as a regular USB drive. So let's go ahead and put this in.
12. Books.
When will Jesus bring the pork chops?
Current position.
Bits and pieces. Occasionally, of course, the surgeon's hand will slip, and the patient will wind up with a baffled look.
So basically, that's just showing you what playing a book is like. You notice it said 12 books. I've got 12 books on this single cartridge, so it's very versatile if you know you're going to have multiple books and you're somebody who doesn't mind going through the process of downloading your books from the web. But this is essentially the library's own player. There are other players, of course, that you can register with the library service. So why would you want this one? Well, first of all, it's got much better battery life, about 29 hours when you first receive it. Now, this player had been sitting over the summer, and so the battery had taken a bit of a hit. But other than that, the player fared fine. I just charged it up, and it went without a hitch. Speaking of which, as far as charging is concerned, this is how you would do it. There's a little adapter cord here in the back that you would plug into the wall, and it's just a standard power adapter. Now, let me go ahead and switch this off.
Player off.
Now, what type of battery is this? This is a NiCad, nickel cadmium battery, and they did that for a number of reasons. One of the biggest ones, they wanted to make this as foolproof as possible as far as safety was concerned. And so, hang on just a moment. So they wanted to make this as foolproof as possible, so they really sealed it up tight against moisture and whatnot. In fact, I'd heard recently through a presentation regarding the 80th anniversary of the program for the National Library Service, they said that this player had a failure rate of 1/20th of 1%. So this is incredibly durable, incredibly robust. And were it actually being sold, again, this is not mine, this is property of the government, but if it were being sold, it'd probably be about $500-600, so it's not cheap. But if anybody has any questions about this player, I feel like I've forgotten something. I'll probably think about it after I see the video. Oh well. Anyway, if anybody has any questions on the player and would like more information about it, please let me know, and I will certainly be happy to go over it. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.